Welcome to the All's Authors Podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Mary Ann Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, OWL's author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to All's Authors Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. We are so happy you have joined us. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us. We know how busy people are, and we appreciate that. So today we have a very lovely guest who has a new caregiver guide to add to the All's Authors collection, and that is Shari Ross. She is a senior healthcare professional working in part of her career working in senior living facilities as a sales specialist, and also has her own personal caregiving story relating to her grandmother. So we would like to welcome you, Shari.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm very, very pleased to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys and hopefully spread a little bit of my own knowledge and information to your audience.
Awesome. We also have with us Sheila Luna, and Sheila is one of our acquisitions editors and is the person who ushered in Shari's book. So when I introduce an acquisitions editor, I kind of like to explain the role of the acquisitions editor. So here at All's Authors, what we do is we read the books. They are dissected by a person who is an author or a writer and has also been on their own personal dementia journey. So they know what we're talking about and what we're looking for. We don't just take a book and throw it up on our website, or we don't just take money from people so that they can put it on the website. We don't do that at all. We actually vet the books to make sure that we're putting out quality products and that they meet the goals of our mission, which is to share quality Alzheimer's and dementia resources for people who need them. So welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. I was really honored to be able to review your book, Senior Living Made Simple. It's called A Real World Guide for Navigating Senior Care for Your Loved One. And I have to tell you, it's so good that I wish I'd had this book when I was researching memory care and assisted living places, like probably 10 years ago now. The book is so conversational and so well written. It's kind of like a friend talking to you, helping you make these decisions. And there were parts of the book that made me laugh, and there are parts of the book that made me cry. And that's a testament to you as a writer, because all writers want to hear that, right? SIMPLE stands for support, information, matching, preparation, letting go, and engagement. And you talk about all that in your book in detail and make it very approachable and simple for families that are just stepping into the unknown. And I mean, I didn't know anything about it. So, I mean, your book is going to be very helpful to a lot of people. So congratulations on finishing a great book.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So, thank you, Sheila, for giving that brilliant synopsis of the book. And I'm just really glad that you enjoyed it. That's great.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that memory care, like, we have those people who say, oh, I would never put my person there. I'll never put my mother in a care home or my husband. And maybe you won't. It's that was the premise of my book that I wrote, my novel. And but things happen and things
Mhm.
change. And whether or not that's part of your plan, it's good to know what's out there. It's good to explore all your options because, life happens. This is a very long journey, and many different things can occur along the way. The caregiver could be lost first, and then creating a dilemma for the family. So, if you could just tell us a little bit about your experience working with these care homes, or what do you call them, Sherry?
I call them communities. And I try to really stay far away from home, the word home or the word nursing home or the word facility specifically. I want to make sure that there is a connotation between like a feeling of community and an enjoyment and quality of life versus this, what a lot of our parents really visualize now because of what they've seen in their past, which is this cold, dark hallway with like fluorescent lights and, people sitting there in wheelchairs, drooling and just literally waiting to die. Like that is so not what is out there nowadays. It's changed tremendously. And so we want to try to get away from that picture in our heads. It makes things a lot less scary. Still scary, but less scary, right? So, in my experience, I worked with hundreds of families now, sitting across the table who, generally speaking, I would meet with the daughter or the son or the spouse, right? Not as much meeting with one-on-one with the actual senior.
Mhm.
Um, and they come to me with just panic in their eyes, just totally exhausted, totally frustrated, don't know where to turn, don't know what to do, what's out there. And because why would they? Before you come to me, why would you? You wouldn't come into an assisted living or a memory care community unless you have somebody who, potentially needs to be there. So you have no knowledge of any of this.
Mhm.
And nobody's really sitting there like prepping on, what to do when their loved one needs care. It's just not something that enters your mind. So now it's all this brand new experience, and it's very, very overwhelming for anybody. And so my whole purpose was to, one, just give them the information, just the basics, what is assisted living versus what is memory care versus what's independent living versus what's a CCRC or a board and care. So all these different options. And then seeing, what it is that their loved one really, really needs, whether from a care perspective or from just a quality of life perspective. And basically just walking them through this whole process, holding their hands. And like you said, Sheila, in the book, I like to be very just conversational, but also very, I don't know if blunt is the right word, but real. So I'm not going to just, like give you baloney stuff that you find in a senior living brochure, right? This is real life. This is heavy. This is emotional. So
Mhm.
let's look at everything from that perspective and knowing that there's going to be guilt, there's going to be sadness, there's going to be frustration, but let's get through all that with some humor, hopefully. But let's look at everything realistically, whether it comes down to the financial part of it or to the logistical part of things in terms of moving things in and how to let go of, your stuff that you've accumulated over the years. And also, I talk a lot about the differences between talking just to an adult child who has a parent that's pretty independent still, maybe just needing a little help with showering or, getting dressed. Maybe they're physically unable to do those things. And then there's the people that I speak with whose parents are starting to develop mild cognitive impairment and then dementia. And that's a whole other ballpark. And it's a very scary, scary place to be in when you're just, starting out, trying to figure out what to do. So, that's just been my job to really create a framework and of knowledge and to go from there.
Hmm. So there are two important things to bear in mind when you do enter your person. I mean, it could be your parent or your spouse or whoever into a community. Is that um, you're still there. You're still a part of it. It's not going to take your place because in some situations, and I experience this myself, you have more responsibilities, not less.
Correct.
You continue to be responsible and to be the decision maker and to make sure people's needs are met and to make sure that they're being treated appropriately.
You must advocate.
Exactly.
Yes.
You must advocate for them at all times.
I'm guilty of being the helicopter daughter.
Hmm.
I kept close watch on where
Hmm.
she lived and everything, and I actually
Yeah.
ended up pulling her out of a place at one time. But then I know that there are families that just leave them and say,
Yeah.
okay, and they
Right.
don't come by. I mean, I've seen that too, and it makes me really sad. And that's why I really
Yeah.
appreciate places like you work that really treat everybody as a family and include
Yeah.
everybody, and they have a new family or they have people that really care about them.
You encourage people to come. You don't say, oh, no, no, stay away. Like we would want our family members to be a part of the community, engage with their loved ones. And I think that's such a vital part of it.
Hmm.
But again, like Marion said, you got to advocate. You got to make sure that the staff is well trained and that you're making sure that your loved one is not getting lost in the shuffle. And part of that is just, keeping an eye on things.
Right.
But I will say that, sometimes, especially when you have a parent or a loved one who has mild cognitive impairment and they're still able to, pick up the phone and call you and tell you things about what's going on. A lot of times, especially in the first few months of, living in a new community, it's scary for them. And they're going to feel, at first a loss of control or a loss of independence in some ways, right? But we all know that it actually is giving them more independence. But the bottom line is they're going to call you and they're going to say, oh, this place is awful. And they're going to complain. And I want to go home. And,
Uh-huh.
I hate it here. And the food's terrible. And this is bad. And blah, blah, blah. But then they go and they turn around to their girlfriends that they've met there. And they are just loving it. They're having a great time. They're going to their classes. They're, engaging and they have this amazing quality of life now. But to you, to the adult child, they feel safe. They feel safe enough to say all the stuff that they want to rant about. And it doesn't mean that it's actually true. So investigate a little bit before you say, oh God, no, that sounds terrible. I'm going to pull you out of there. Because really, you're going to be the person that they dump stuff on, but it's actually not necessarily the reality. And so make sure that you know the difference between what they're just saying and what's actually happening.
Hmm. Right. And the other thing is that as arduous as it may be to find a community and move the person into the community, that may not be your last stop.
Right.
Sometimes people move three and
Absolutely.
four times.
And hopefully not. And the whole part of my book is really there to kind of help you guide you to make the right decision the right time, that the first time. But that doesn't always happen. It just, for whatever reason, there may be an issue that comes up that is just not fixable, and you have to, make a move. But if you start in the beginning with kind of the framework that I give in terms of how to look for the right match and getting prepared and having all the ducks in a row, then and also when you're touring, there's a vibe. got to go with the vibe. It's not about when you walk into a building and you see this amazing chandelier and gorgeous like dining room with chef inspired cuisine, right? There is a lot more that's important than just the apartment and just the look of a place. It's about the caregiving, it's about the experience there, it's about how the community is run, and the care level that matches the care that you need or that your loved one needs.
Exactly. All very good points. So tell us a little bit about your dementia story and
Yeah.
starting with your grandmother. We must have
Yeah,
been a child when that happened.
I was. So, my connection to dementia is sort of threefold, right? So personal life, in a couple of ways, and then obviously my professional life. And so my grandmother, when I was young, very young, she had Alzheimer's, and I can't say that I was particularly close to her. I had two sets of grandparents, and the other set of grandparents I spent quite a bit of time with. They did not have any Alzheimer's, but they had a lot of physical ailments. But my grandmother, when I was a kid, I didn't understand when I would go to visit her. I didn't understand the medical side of it. I didn't understand what Alzheimer's was and what all that meant. But I did notice the changes in her. And at first, I did notice that, it was the little things like she'd start a story and then she'd kind of just like lose the thread halfway through, and then she would like laugh it off and kind of be embarrassed about it. I remember her losing things all the time, like she'd put her purse in like the freezer or like random places, and then she couldn't remember it. And then I remember at like family dinners, she would kind of ask a lot of the same questions and kind of had the same like sentences on repeat. Like she had, these planned out stories or planned out topics that she knew very well that she would talk about. And but she would also ask a lot of questions, like, a lot of times, like 5 seconds after she asked them. So I was observing my parents, over these dinners, and they would get very tensed up and they were trying to stay calm and everything, but I could tell in their eyes that they were scared and they were like, what's going on? And I did notice that they also didn't argue with her about some of the things she said. They didn't try to correct all her mistakes.
Mhm.
They would kind of just gently steer the conversation into a different direction, so that she could stay, comfortable and not be embarrassed. And so even as a child, I could sense that something really serious was happening. And that it actually hurt the adults, my parents, more than they probably wanted me to see. Um, and so I kind of learned that dementia wasn't just about just memory loss, right? It ripples through the entire family, and it is a very, very emotional thing that has so many different components to it. Um, so the flip side of things, and well, that was a very big learning experience for me in terms of what dementia was and how people acted when they had it and what it caused, within the family. And so when I became an adult, my father-in-law, and this is more of a current story, a few years ago, he lives in Florida, I'm in California, so we're across the coast from the country from each other. So I wasn't seeing him on a very regular basis. But I did notice every time I go to visit him, there were some really clear signs that he was starting to maybe have a touch of mild cognitive impairment, just a little bit of forgetfulness and, a little bit of just things that he said that were a little interesting. And I also saw that he was just declining physically, just not getting any exercise, eating microwave meals every day, really just not in the best of health. And he was isolating. which
Mhm.
is also another key sign to look for when, you're looking for any kind of memory loss is people do tend to isolate because they get embarrassed that they're maybe not remembering things and they can't communicate the way they used to. And so they start staying in the house and that's kind of a cyclical kind of thing because the more you stay alone and isolate and not move and not, learn new things and not get out there in the world, the quicker your memory can decline. So anyway, I'm seeing all of this and I said to him on a few different occasions. What do you think about, maybe assisted living, going into community? How would you love to be cooked for and have all your laundry done and you don't have to worry about the apartment and cleaning it and blah blah because he was noticeably not cleaning well and he was not eating well and he was not wearing different clothing and there was definitely like some interesting odors and all that. So I'm noticing all that. And he was adamantly like, nope, not doing it. No way. I am staying at home, which is obviously what I hear all the time.
Mhm.
Well, in this case, this is a story I tell because even though I deal with this professionally every day, dealing with it in a personal manner was so different. Because I was frustrated. I was like, oh my God, like I keep on trying to talk to him about this, and he's just nope, 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 nope. Well, unfortunately, he fell, right? And unbeknownst to us, he had fallen multiple times before this. Well, this time he was found hours after the fall on the floor he was found by his brother, who thankfully also lives in Florida. Goodness gracious, thank goodness he found him because otherwise who knows. But he was lucky. He went to the hospital. He had a broken hip. He went to rehab. And then we sat down and talked to him, and he was noticeably scared and knew right then that, okay, you've planted the seed. Now I understand. I know I can't do this alone anymore. I need to get assistance. And he went into assisted living and he actually went to a program that supports mild cognitive impairment, where he's getting a really routine day every day. He's getting 3 good, nutritious meals. He's getting medication management because I think he was not taking his medications properly at all of this actually improved his memory quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I think mostly the biggest thing was the social interaction. He was
Mhm.
now out of his apartment. He was interacting with new people. He was playing cards. He was doing all these things he hadn't done in years. And I am just telling you, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months or so after he had been living at this community, I mean, different person. He, I don't even know if he's got mild cognitive impairment anymore. I mean, he probably does. He has some little tiny signs, but oh my goodness, he could have a full-on conversation. He's remembering things. Feels or seems way happier. And he physically looks better. He's moving. He's doing chair yoga, which I'm sure he never imagined doing in
Mhm.
his life, but he's doing it. And he's come out of his shell a little bit. And it's showing in leaps and bounds how much better his quality of life is. And I'm not saying this is, it's not a fairy tale. It doesn't always work out this way, right? For every single person. But this is an example in my personal life that I have seen in a zillion times over in my professional life as well. And again, it's not always perfect. You're still going to feel guilt. You're still going to feel fear. You're still going to, wonder if you're making the right decision. But in the end, for him in that situation, it was the best thing that could have happened.
Mm. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Love that story. I wanted my mom to have something like that when it was her turn, and she didn't want to leave her home. And we had a family
Mhm.
member who was willing to move in with her and stay with her.
Oh, good.
And so that's what happened, but I don't want to get into too many details, but I still feel like that was just not the right choice for her because she was still isolated. She became
Hmm.
more and more homebound and things. And I think that if she had gone into a assisted living and she was a very social person, I think she would have
Yeah.
been a lot happier. Things,
If you're, yeah, if you're
it's
social, you
hard to
should.
share your house with somebody else too.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't want somebody coming in and invading my privacy. And I think a lot of people discover that after they're like, I'm going to stay home. And then they get caregivers coming into the home. It is intrusive and it makes you just feel kind of, I don't know, out of whack. And you're not getting that social engagement with your peers. So then it kind of lands on the shoulders of the adult child to be the be all end all and
Right.
entertain and be the friend and be the, so a lot of times I hear people say, I'm just going to stay at home. And for them, maybe that's the right decision, but I think in a lot of cases it is not. And once they do move, they discover that it's the best option for them.
Right. Yeah. And one of our authors, Dr. Renee Harmon, who wrote the book Surfing the Waves of Alzheimer's, her husband had early onset Alzheimer's and was at home for a number of years while she tried to manage their medical practice and their children and home life. And finally, that, came to the end of the road, and he went into a community. And when she went there, like they could sense, the director could sense how distraught she was, to have to leave him there. And she said to him, our job is to take care of him, and your job is to love him. And that like really says it all. She's like, you're his wife, and you're there to love him. That's your job, and we'll do the rest. And that
Yeah.
relieved her of so much of a burden, a lot of her guilt and all of that. So I always remember those words because I think that's really important because you're not
Yeah.
meant to, especially if you're a child caring for your parent, you're not meant to do those things, to take on those
You're
roles.
not. You're not. And a lot of times, like you said, especially the sandwich generation, you're trying to juggle your
Mhm.
career, you're trying to juggle your kids or your adult children or whatever it is. And now you're aging parents. And I'm sorry, but we are not super people, right? No
Mhm.
matter how hard you try and how much you put into it, in the end, it's going to leave you completely exhausted. You can't do the best in every area. So then you end up doing like so-so in every area. And so let's shift that and say, okay, I must do my career. I must take care of my kids. But let's find a way for our loved one, our parent, our spouse to thrive and perhaps in many cases get better care than what we can provide for them. So don't lay it upon yourself that you have to do it all and you have to do it because you're not going to be able to do everything all at once, all 100%, which is not possible humanly. So sometimes the best case scenario is your loved one will get better care and you will be able to do all the other things in your life and de-stress a little bit and have a relationship now with your loved one that's meaningful and not just about stress and about care and about figuring out, if they're in the home, figuring out all the different caregiver schedules and making sure they're getting everything delivered to their house and all of those things. Now you can like let go a little bit, share the load with professionals who are trained, hopefully, you got to make sure
Mhm.
they're trained, who are trained to know how to deal with and people with dementia and at all the different stages of their aging. And so don't feel guilty. I mean, yeah, easier said than done, right? Don't feel
Right.
guilty.
Always
But
good.
no, you're coming at it with love and you're coming at it with the idea of just giving your loved one more support that maybe you cannot provide.
You do mention in your book, which I thought was kind of eye-opening, you say AARP loves to champion aging in place.
Hmm.
And because it sounds a lot, it sounds better, it sounds more empowering, you're independent. But you claim that 90% of homes are not designed for older adults.
Mhm.
Most don't have caregiving help. So aging in place becomes gambling. And there's
Yeah.
kind of a different way to look at the whole thing too. A common mistake you say is to think independent means save. You say
Yeah.
independence without a support net is just slow motion disaster. So it
Yeah.
kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind. I mean, just aging in place sounds great. It sounds empowering. It sounds like that's what
Yeah.
we're going to do, but there's
Right.
a lot behind the scenes that goes
Oh,
with that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the families come to me after they promised their parent that they could stay at home and because that was their wishes, but now they're dealing with, these circle of in and out caregivers because, even if you have a wonderful, reliable caregiving service, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have to still manage it. I mean, the people take off, they call out sick, then you're scrambling to find somebody to replace them. Or, their house is like, obviously you're going to want to try to have a housekeeper there. You're going to have somebody come in and cook. You're going to have, all these different components. And it's a lot to manage. You become like a secretary, trying to make all these appointments and then you're managing their doctor's appointments, you're managing their medications, you're managing all of these things yourself. And it's not, you can't just throw it off into the caregiver's hands to do. It's you. So now transition over to being in a community setting. You've got the transportation to the doctor's appointments. You can still go meet your parent there, like at the doctor appointment, but now you're not worrying about getting them in the car. Maybe they're resisting going to the appointment. So now you don't have to worry about, okay, I got to get them in the car. They're going to resist. I got to physically get them in the car. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, so that's difficult. Then, you have to figure out, did they take, you don't need to figure out now once they're in the community, did they take their medications? They're taking their medications because you've got caregivers and nurses, hopefully, that are handling that. But again, investigate, make sure that they are well trained and that they are
Hmm.
doing the right thing. So observe, and don't just send your parents off. Just make sure that they are getting the right care where they are, but know that now it's going to be a lot less on you, on your shoulders. And there's just so much more peace of mind that comes with knowing that if they do have wandering tendencies, for example, like they're not going to walk out their front door or their back door and get lost. And now they're in a place where they're safe.
Hmm.
And they may still fall, right? They might still do things that could get themselves injured. But now, nowadays in a lot of communities, especially memory care communities, there are fall detection devices in their apartments. There are wander guards. There's a lot of technology now where it does help to keep our loved ones safer. And there's 24-hour support. So you can actually go to sleep and not, either be up wondering and worrying, or on the flip side of getting up with your loved one 50 times a night,
Right.
because they got to go to the bathroom and you're scared they're going to fall and, or they
Hmm.
wake up and they think it's the daytime and,
Hmm.
all of these crazy things that happen. Now you can get some sleep, which is vital. Without you feeling good and without you getting some care, you cannot help your loved one. It's not gonna work. You have to be well nourished in every way as a caregiver yourself, or as a daughter, as a son. You gotta feel good and get sleep and you know get what you need to.
We talked about some of the language that we use around these types of issues, and some we need to avoid, or others we need to start using. Can you explain some of those? You did say, I think, facility. We didn't like that word.
Yeah.
Community is the word, but what are some others?
Community. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I hear old folks home, I hear nursing home, I hear, like I've said, facility. I'm not going to put my parents into a home. Even retirement home sounds bad. And a lot of this, when you're talking to a parent, about all of these decisions, you do want to use the right terminology because it's scary. Again, they have in their minds their picture of what they saw when their
Mhm.
parents needed help. And it was not a pleasant environment, right? And so it's so different now. So I like to use the warmth of community, of apartment living, of the neighborhood. In fact, the company that I worked for many, many years, they had independent living, assisted living, and memory care, and it was secured memory care. And they called the memory care the neighborhood. So when I would be talking to families about, memory care, I would say it, I would use the word the neighborhood. It just, it just sounds nicer and warmer and not so scary, which is a big part of this whole thing. It's just scary because there's so much unknown, right? So use the right words. Don't use clinical terms. Um, just make it really simple, for
Mhm.
people to understand and feel good about.
Yeah, I have a friend going through this right now with her 100-year-old mom that lives alone. And my friend lives near one of the premier places in our area. So I said to her, when your mom comes to visit, just take her there. You can
Yeah,
go there and have lunch and let her see
right.
what's there. And maybe
Yeah.
she'll, not think it's so bad if she gets to go over and experience what it really is like.
I've
Because you
had
can
so
imagine
many
with a
families like
hundred-year-old
that.
mother living alone,
Oh God,
um, how scary that is. And it's starting
really?
to, amp up. So she was great until she turned 100, and then all of a sudden now she's starting to decline a little
Oh,
bit.
hey,
And
that's a good run though.
it's amazing. It really is amazing. But, she's like, my friend's like, that's a really good idea. So, I mean, that's something that you can
Yeah,
do is and visit people that you might know that are in a place like that. And,
right.
let them see uh,
It's not so bad. It's not
what
so
it's,
bad.
yeah, it's not so bad. And people, there have been shows on TV and movies and things too, I think lately where they try to show that side of things. And I'm thinking of that one show, I think it was Ted Danson. He ends up being
Hmm.
a detective in the care home.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up, put it in the show notes, but it was a
The
really good
Inside
show.
Man, isn't it?
The Inside Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Thank
Inside
you.
Man.
That was it. The Inside Man. That was great.
Yeah.
He was hired, like he took a job with a private investigator, even though he didn't know anything about doing that, and went into the community like incognito as
Yeah.
undercover. That was a
Yep.
great one. And then I watched another, there was another one with about women, there were women, all these women that were living in a place. And it shows it in a much more positive light. That's like the reality, like where people live. If you live in a more rural or in one of the poorer areas, you might not have access.
Exactly. That
And
and
it's
that is unfortunate. I think over time, more and more though, they're building
more
on
and
this
more.
model. But going back to what you said, I completely agree. I would always say when there was a really resistant parent or spouse, I would say, first step, let's just let's just come to lunch. No pressure. We're not even going to do a tour. You're just going to come to the restaurant at the community, sit down, and our job was to maybe find the right people to be seated with this person that based on who they were and what their interests were so that they could maybe strike up a conversation with somebody at the table and just be there, just try the food, hopefully it's good, and just get that experience of that kind of community feeling. But I would always stress that, especially when people would say, "Oh, well, my mom would never do this activity," and they just like to watch TV and sit in their room. And I always stressed, it's not about you have to be around people 24/7, right? You've got your own apartment there. You've got your own space. You can go and retreat and have your privacy and read your book and watch TV or whatever. But then you know that no matter what, there's meal times. And those are going to be very social times, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if they attend. We would always encourage people not to eat in their apartments to come down and have a meal because no matter what, whether you maybe did no other activity all day long, at least you're having that social interaction. And then we start slow, hey, do you like to read? Okay, join the book club. Do you, we would always encourage, of course, at least one exercise class a day, which is like, a seated like sit and be fit or chair yoga, something like that, just to get some movement going. And over time, a good community and the staff will encourage the resident to get out there and try new things and try different activities.
Mm.
And good communities will have a really good range of things that cater to the intellectual, the more physical person, the person who like isn't very social, but maybe they like to do art. So all these things are wonderful activities that they typically will offer now. Um, so I always just encourage to start with the lunch, maybe start with a visit of a friend that that lives there. Um, and that's a good way to just kind of introduce them without any kind of pressure.
Hmm.
I also liked your little piece of advice about not just the tour, but maybe going there when they're not expecting it and just going to look around when they don't know you're coming. Because that way you can look out for different things and you can
Yeah.
observe the
Yeah.
caregivers. Yeah.
Yeah, go in the morning, and then another time go at lunch and another time go in the evening. Scope it out because you don't want to just rely on a tour because guess what? When
Yeah.
you go on the tour, everything's going to be perfect. And the tour guide, the, salesperson is going to show you all the wonderful things and all the best moments and wonderful, everybody's got a smile on their face and all that stuff. But guess what? That's not always reality. And no matter where you are, the best possible place you could go to, there's still going to be things like so issues that come up and things they don't do perfectly. But at least, if you've researched it and you've gone at different times of the day and unexpectedly drop in, they might hate that, but guess what? You do it because it'll give you a much better perspective without all the bells and whistles and the show of it. So for sure do that. Be simple method. So each letter of the word simple stands for, an idea, a concept, and it's sort of a framework. Whether you're haven't even started any of this or haven't even, had to deal with it yet, or if you're in the midst of it. So I can kind of just go through the letters
Yeah.
and give you kind of a real brief, tiny synopsis of each. And each one could be a whole podcast. I mean, because they're each so important individually.
Mm.
But I'll try to be real quick. So S is for support. So we cannot do this alone. We need to build a team, and we need to have friends, family, professionals, whether it be a geriatric care manager or a uh, elder care attorney or financial planner or just a support group or your best friend, whoever it may be, but just have a team around you. You cannot do this without support, emotionally and just logistically. It just can't happen. um, I I is for information. So information, there's a million things to learn, but if you start early, before the shit span, right? You want to learn about the options. What is out there? What types of places can my loved one go to? What would suit them? What would it entail? What would it cost? All of the different pieces of information, whether it's through touring or just research, talking to someone like me, like there's different ways to find out all this information, but do it because you don't want to be sitting in the ER at 2 a.m. after a fall trying to figure out and scramble on what to do and where to go. So M, matching. Matching is really important. There are, like I said, so many different options out there, and there's so many different personalities and care needs and likes and dislikes that our loved ones have. So finding the right place for them, not based on the chandelier and the lobby, not based on whether they have fresh cookies out every day, not based on, how exactly that it's 2 minutes away from you. So this is the best place. You got to match it to the type of environment that your loved one actually needs, so that they are getting the right kind of care and that they can thrive. And then there's P, which is preparation. Sort of goes hand in hand with information, but with preparation, you're making sure you have all your ducks in a row. You've got to have your financial paperwork lined up. You've got to have your legal paperwork. Who's power of attorney, especially for if you now have somebody who's got mild cognitive impairment, make sure that you are or somebody is becoming power of attorney so that you can help make decisions as they progress into further into dementia. So you want to make sure all that legal planning and financial planning is all in place so that you know what you have to work with, one, when you are trying to pay for everything, and two, it makes you feel better so you're not panicking and like in the basement, like looking through an old box, like, oh my God, I know my mom has a long-term care policy. Where is it? And I mean, what does it cover? And who do I call? So have all that stuff. With my mom, she's still independent, thankfully, but we sat down for an entire day one Saturday and like literally put everything together into a binder. And it wasn't really fun, but like it had happened because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm scrambling and not knowing her wishes and not knowing, all of the things that are going to happen when she's, hopefully not in with dementia, but with any other issue. Okay, L. L is an important one. It's kind of twofold. It's letting go. Letting go, on one hand, is letting go of the guilt, letting go of feeling like you have to do it all, and knowing that it's okay. And no matter where you are and what you've done and how you've done it, it's okay. And it's normal to feel the feelings that you're feeling. And but let go of that guilt. The other part of it is letting go of the things. I think we mentioned it before, letting go of feeling like you have to have this house. I know you've been there for 50 years, but it's time to let it go. You can't handle the house really. I mean, or don't say it like that, but say, do you feel like overwhelmed, having to handle the minutia of the house and still cook and would it be easier maybe to not have this house to have to manage? Let go of the possessions, of the china, of the antique table, of the, bed that's a California king and the apartment you're going into can only support a full-size bed. Like these things, I know in the moment you're holding on to those things because it's a sense of control and you're losing or you feel like you're losing so much independence and so much of you don't want to let it go. And that's understandable. But it's time. It's time to let that go because what's more important now is making sure you're safe and you have a good quality of life. And those things aren't going to necessarily do that for you. All right, so last letter, we have E, which is engagement. Engagement is really where you're making sure that both you and your loved one are basically focusing now on purpose and connection and the quality of their life and not just, obviously meals and medication and all the caregiving is important, but engage. Make sure that they're engaging. They're not sitting in their apartment watching TV all day long. And also part of that is engaging with them, making sure that when they go into a community, you're still going and having a regular lunch with them or dinner or breakfast, and you're still doing activities with them and, maybe taking them out if you're able to. Get involved with some of the things they do there at the community, sit with them and do an art class with them. That way you're still maintaining this connection with them, even though they're, not at home. They're in a different environment, but it's letting them know that you still have that relationship and you're still there for them, and you haven't like just let them go into a place where they have to meet all new people and learn all this new stuff. You are still a part of their lives. So that's it. I mean, it's a very simple concept, but I think it's powerful. It's kind of just a roadmap, and instead of looking at all this in chaos and emotional stuff, I feel like this helps to approach it all with more confidence and gives you a little more peace of mind.
That sounds great. I love that.
Yeah.
Sheila, did you have any other comments before we say goodbye?
I think we talked about everything. I really like your advice on, I think one of the lines you said was be observant, be vocal, and trust your gut.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Trust your gut.
Ask all the questions. Ask questions.
Yes, and I have lists of questions you can ask and lists of things you can look for. And, don't just rely on a friend who you saw in the grocery store that says, "Oh, my mom went to this place and it's so fabulous and you need to move your mom in there." You need to go check that out and research it, because maybe for her mom it's amazing, but for your mom it would just not be the right fit. So use your gut and, really research and prepare. And I feel like it will take away a lot of that just chaos when you're in the midst of this. So, and you can find my book on and my workbook. The workbook is kind of just a extension of the book. It is just full of lists, and there's journal prompting, because a lot of times this is a very, very, it's always emotional. It's just an emotional journey. So it helps to just kind of get your head around like what's going on. So the workbook and the book are on Amazon.com. Books on all the other, online bookstores that you can find, Goodreads and Walmart and Barnes and Nobles. You can also order them directly through my website, which is Senior Living Made Simple, same as the book.com, same as the book. You can order them there, and you can also order or schedule through my website either a 30-minute or a 60-minute kind of consultation, just to be able to talk through what is going on and kind of get some guidance. And hopefully I can really hold your hand through it, which is what I, done with all these families for so many years. And I find it so rewarding to just be able to let someone know they're not alone. Let them know that a lot of what they're feeling is normal, and it's gonna be hard no matter what, but at least we can have a plan, right? And it'll make you feel a little bit more organized and go through this with a little bit more clarity. So anyway, you can go online and schedule those sessions with me. There's also on Etsy, it's called the Senior Living Shop, and you can download each of my checklists for each different subject that you need to work on, or you can, download the whole workbook together. So all of those things are out there for you guys and for your audience, and hopefully take advantage of it. And my hope is that it just, even if it's one person, that it really just, it helps you feel better about this whole journey, because it's not easy.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much. It was lovely to have you on the show and to talk about your book, which I think will be very helpful to a lot of people.
Thank you.
So-
I think, what you're doing your mission is amazing. It's
you.
helping so many people. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing and putting out there. It's so excellent and fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony.
Hi, this is Roseanne Corcoran, host of Daughterhood the Podcast and a proud member of All's Authors. I wanted to share some exciting news. All's Authors has a merchandise store. That's right, now you can buy t-shirts, sweatshirts, caps, bags, and more in various colors and All's Authors logos. You can even customize them for an additional charge. All proceeds from the merchandise store benefit All's Authors, so we can continue our mission of not only sharing the web's most comprehensive collection of books and blogs on Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but also support our podcast, Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, where each author shares their personal journey to help you learn and cope with an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis. You can find the store on allsauthors.com or in the show notes. Thank you, and remember, you are not alone.